Welcome to Skyhope. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Skyhope, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Today's story is about family loyalty, hidden secrets, and a woman who spent years believing she was simply the responsible daughter, until one Christmas dinner changed everything. My name is Charlotte Frost. I'm 32 years old, and until last Christmas, I believed that hard work would eventually earn respect. I was wrong. Because on Christmas Day, in front of more than 30 relatives, my own parents publicly demanded that I pay $93,000 for my younger sister's dream wedding. When I refused, they called me selfish. When I questioned them, they called me ungrateful. And when I walked away, they convinced nearly everyone in the family that I had betrayed them. For days, my phone exploded with calls, messages, and voicemails. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my money. Everyone seemed to believe the same thing, that I owed my sister. But what none of them knew was that I had spent my entire adult life working with numbers, and numbers have a way of exposing the truth. A week later, I opened an old leather satchel my grandmother had left me before she passed away. Inside were documents that revealed a secret my family had hidden for years. A secret worth tens of thousands of dollars. A secret that would completely change the way everyone in that room looked at my parents. And by the time the truth came out, the people demanding money from me were the same people struggling to explain where mine had gone. This is the story of how one family meeting turned into an unexpected audit and how a quiet daughter finally stopped paying for everyone else's choices. Let me explain. I live in Harrisonburg, Virginia. My life has never been glamorous. I work as a certified public accountant for a small accounting firm. I drive an older Honda Civic. I rent a modest apartment above a bookstore. And every dollar I own comes from years of careful planning, budgeting, and sacrifice. I wasn't wealthy. I wasn't connected. I simply worked hard. Meanwhile, my younger sister Brooke lived a very different life. The week after Christmas felt strangely quiet. Not because the calls had stopped, they hadn't, but because I had stopped listening. For years, I had been the daughter who kept the peace, the one who apologized first, the one who stayed silent when something felt unfair. But something about that Christmas dinner had changed me. Maybe it was the way my father looked at me when he said I owed my sister. Maybe it was the way 30 relatives watched without saying a word. Or maybe it was because, for the first time, I realized that being the responsible one had become my family's excuse to take advantage of me. 3 days later, I finally opened my grandmother's leather satchel, the same satchel she carried to church every Sunday for more than 3 decades. Inside were old photographs, handwritten notes, and several financial documents. At first, I thought they were simply keepsakes. Then I started reading, and everything changed. The paperwork revealed that my grandmother had created a trust years earlier, $94,000, split equally between her 2 granddaughters. $47,000 for Brooke, $47,000 for me. I stared at the documents in disbelief. I had never heard of this trust, never received a statement, never received a single dollar. Yet according to the records, Brooke's portion remained untouched. Mine didn't. Several withdrawals had been made over the years. The signatures were authorized by the trustee, my mother. I checked every document twice, then a third time. The numbers didn't lie. The money had been withdrawn gradually over several years. Each transfer was labeled as a family expense. When I connected the dates, everything became clear. The money had been used to solve problems connected to Brooke's lifestyle, apartment expenses, debt payments, emergency costs, situations my parents had often complained about during phone conversations. Suddenly all those conversations made sense. The money hadn't come from sacrifices they made. It had come from a fund that belonged to me. I sat there for nearly an hour, not angry, not crying, just processing. Because once you understand numbers, you understand patterns, and the pattern was impossible to ignore. For years, resources had flowed in one direction, toward Brooke, never toward me. That night, I opened a spreadsheet. I called it Frost Family Financial Summary. For the next several days, I documented everything, every verified expense, every financial rescue, every payment my parents had made on Brooke's behalf. The total shocked even me. The amount exceeded $170,000, and now they wanted $93,000 more, not because they needed it, but because they expected it. The more I documented, the more obvious the truth became. This wasn't about a wedding. It was about entitlement. The following week, I met with my great-uncle Ray. He had always been close to my grandmother. When I showed him the documents, his face turned pale. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he quietly admitted something. Before she passed away, Grandma Ruth had expressed concerns. She believed the money might have been moved. She simply didn't have proof. Now, we did. Uncle Ray looked at me and said something I'll never forget. Your grandmother left those documents because she trusted you to understand them. That sentence stayed with me all the way home because suddenly I understood why she had waited until after her death to reveal the truth. She knew one day I would need evidence, not opinions, not emotions, evidence. A few days later, another piece of information surfaced, and this one changed everything. Through a casual conversation at work, I learned something about Brooke's fiancé's family. They were extremely successful financially, far more successful than anyone in my family. Curious, I reached out directly to Tyler. I asked a simple question. Were your parents planning to help with the wedding? His answer stunned me. They had already offered a substantial contribution, an offer Brooke had declined. I sat silently after the call ended because now the story looked completely different. My sister wasn't asking me to help because there were no other options. She was asking because she expected me to pay. That realization hurt more than any number ever could. A few days later, my mother finally agreed to a family meeting. A private meeting, no audience, no holiday celebration, no public pressure, just the truth. I spent the next several evenings organizing documents, every number, every record, every piece of evidence. By the time I finished, the folder contained years of history, years of choices, years of favoritism. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to stop staying quiet. The meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon. I packed the folder into my grandmother's satchel, looked at the documents one final time, and drove toward my parents' house. I had no idea what would happen next, but I knew one thing. The truth was finally about to enter the room. Sunday arrived cold and grey. The same house, the same dining room, the same people. But this time I wasn't there to defend myself. I was there to present facts. Nearly a dozen relatives had gathered. My parents sat at the head of the table. Brooke sat beside Tyler. Several family members watched nervously. Everyone expected another argument. Nobody expected an audit. After a few minutes, my father stood. He repeated the same speech I had heard for weeks. Family, loyalty, sacrifice, responsibility. Then he looked directly at me. Charlotte, your sister needs your help. The room went silent. I slowly opened my grandmother's satchel, removed several copies of the financial summary, and handed them around the table. Confusion spread across every face. Then people began reading. The silence grew heavier. Page after page documented years of financial support, verified amounts, verified dates, verified records, no accusations, no emotional language, just facts. For the first time, everyone could see the complete picture. The trust fund, the withdrawn money, the assistance provided over the years, and the wedding contribution that had already been offered and rejected. Every number told the same story. The room changed. You could feel it. People who arrived expecting to pressure me suddenly found themselves asking different questions. Questions my parents struggled to answer. My mother became defensive. My father became quiet. Brooke stared at the papers without speaking. Then Uncle Ray stood. His voice was calm. He confirmed everything he knew about Grandma Ruth's concerns, and that was the moment the conversation shifted completely. The pressure that had been aimed at me disappeared because the facts were impossible to ignore. Nobody could argue with the documents. Nobody could argue with the math. Eventually, I looked around the table, at my parents, at my sister, at everyone who had called me selfish, and I said something simple. I am not paying for the wedding. The room remained silent. I am not asking for money back either. Several people looked surprised, but I continued. I'm not here to collect a debt. I'm here to set a boundary. For years, I had carried responsibilities that were never mine. For years, I had accepted treatment I never deserved. That ended today. Nobody argued. Nobody shouted. Because deep down, everyone knew the truth had finally surfaced. I gathered the documents, placed them back into the satchel, and stood up. As I walked toward the door, something unexpected happened. Nobody tried to stop me. For the first time, I wasn't leaving as the family problem. I was leaving as the person who had told the truth. Over the following weeks, things slowly changed. The wedding plans became smaller and more realistic. Tyler's family stepped in to help. The event moved forward without my money, just as it always could have. Several relatives reached out privately. Some apologized. Others admitted they had judged me unfairly. Even my father eventually sent a message. A short message, only 2 words. I'm sorry. It wasn't a perfect ending. Families rarely work that way. But it was honest. Months later, a wedding invitation arrived in my mailbox. My name appeared simply as a guest, not a sponsor, not a financier, not a solution to someone else's problems. Just a guest. And strangely enough, that felt like a victory. Today, Grandma Ruth's satchel still sits on my bookshelf, closed and safe, a reminder that truth doesn't always arrive when we want it to. Sometimes it waits until we're strong enough to face it. Looking back, I learned something important. Family isn't measured by how much money you give. It's measured by respect, by honesty, by accountability. And when those things disappear, no amount of money can replace them. Thank you for watching this story on Skyhope. If this story meant something to you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been placed in a situation where people expected something from you simply because you were responsible? Let us know. And remember, being kind doesn't mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. We'll see you in the next story.